Ah, I heard the little blink that tells me the video's going. Yes, 6 seconds now. Tagore versus Chester. Who will win? I'm back on the Netflix, and I found a series of, I believe it's 20. Is it 20 parts regarding 26 stories, or 26 parts regarding 20 stories? I don't know. Anyway, Rabindranath Tagore, and excuse the bad pronunciation, Bengali writer. There's a series on Netflix which is from a 2015 series of all his stories, or at least most of his stories, written around 1890s, around the turn of the 20th century, but these are set in the 1920s. And I said, okay, let's do a review. Before I realized that there were 20 of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first 5 I watched and see if I can get through the rest of them. And the first one is really, they connect with each other. Now, I don't know if they were originally that way. I never read the stories, but anyway, they're good. They're good, and they're more like fables than real tales. First one is called Chakarbali, which is pronounced wrong. It means eyesore. And I have trouble with names, so I'm just going to give you the names of the people in the first story and tell you what I've watched up to now, which is, like I said, the first 4 started on the 5th one, but the 5th one seems to be very depressing. So there's this woman, her name is Binodini, and she's a widow. Now, widows in India, at least back then, and to some extent still now, are totally bad luck. And they go around basically in a white sheet and don't have any makeup, and they don't have any jewelry, and they're just like totally shunned. And in this first story, Binodini was originally going to be engaged to Mahendra. And Mahendra rejected her sight unseen. So then she was going to be passed off to his friend Bihari, who also rejected her sight unseen because he didn't want seconds. So then Mahendra ends up marrying this girl, Asha, who is very childish, which drives me nuts because I cannot stand the childishness of women in most Indian media that I've seen. And Mahendra decides to marry Asha. He wasn't going to. He was going to pass her off on Bihari, but then he changed her mind because he liked the way she looked. So Bihari is kind of steamed at this. So Mahendra and Asha are living, very honeymoony, never going out to eat, staying in, which is like, people don't like to see that. And there's a relation, I think that Binodini was related to somebody's aunt or something. So she ends up living in the same compound area where they are. And she is like mad at Mahendra. Like, she should have all these things. She should have the wonderful, chumry, chumky, and just the saris and the brocade going on. Also, in at least in these movies, women tend to go to bed with Fort Knox on them. They just like totally clanky. Like I said, but meanwhile, Binodini is going around in this basically a sheet, which is like really, I think she's anyway. The point being that she starts to like make the moves on Mahendra because she's educated, and Asha is, well, she's just a plaything. And she becomes friends and calls her Chokarbali, eyesore, like just the very sight of this woman who's married to this guy who she doesn't even really like pisses her off. So she seduces him, and they run off. Meanwhile, she really wants Bihari, and Bihari really wants her, of course. And this story is told in flashback, at least in this show. It's told in flashback where Bihari and Binodini are meeting 6 years later. Their trains are literally crossing paths in the middle of the rainy night. So we're getting this story bit by bit that, she really wanted Bihari, but Bihari didn't say anything because, widows. And so they run off, Mahendra and Bihari. And he really is into her, but she wants Bihari. So she's like, let's go to this city. Let's go to that city. She's using him to get to find Bihari. And he finds out and gets to Bihari first and says, she's dead. She died of typhus. And she ends up at a widow's home. And so we find out 6 years later, this is what happened. And Bahari wants, excuse me, I belch, and Bahari wants to like get with her now, but she decides no because he's engaged to another doctor, and so they're better off that way. And then she gets on the train, and on the train is where the second story comes in. There's a bunch of musicians, and one of them is this young guy. Forgot his name, doesn't matter. He's got like really bad teeth and a unibrow, and it's the fakest flute playing I've ever seen in my effing life. Not even a attempt at verisimilitude. And then we sort of see him in flashback. This kid periodically runs away from his house, and this one time he ran away from his house, he ended up befriending a landlord, because landlord money, do whatever the hell they want. So befriending this landlord who is with his family going back on a barge from someplace. So he goes with them on the barge, and the landlord has two daughters, and one is like, the cute little chubbly younger daughter, and the older one is a pain in the ass. She is so childish. She's like yelling at the maid because the maid messed up her saris. And when they get to the house and this, Miss Kid Unibrow lives with these people because, they're rich and they have 40 servants anyway. They can just give them sweeter rooms. And older sister is like really being a bitch to him. Like he's trying to learn English and she's like dumping ink on his stuff and, crumbling up stuff and busting the other kid's flute that was made for just being a biatch. Again, childish Indian women. And so the landlord says, this kid, he's not from the greatest society, but he's very smart, and I'm sure his family's good. Let's marry him off to the daughter. And the daughter, of course, really likes him, but won't say. So as the landlord makes arrangements to see the family of Unibrow boy, and they're sitting there, having the tea and cakes with the sweets and all, and the daughter, of course, has all her stuff on, and they go to find him, and he's gone. He has run off with musicians who were in a theater show they saw. Okay, fine. In this case, this is a wonderful story because the kid's a pain in the ass and the daughter's a pain in the ass. And who are they to decide who marries who? Story number 3. Landlord falls for bad actress. Turns out wife is the better one. And that's basically what it is. We go into the theater, the live theater, where this guy is like falling for the actress. The actress is so-so. And his wife is very sweet and very nice. And she knows that he's like going out to the theater all the time. So she asks her sister to go to the theater and check this lady out. Because this lady isn't much of anything. So then the wife goes with the sister to see. And she is like fascinated by the life of the theater. And of course she is educated and somehow knows how to play that 3-string thing just fine. And so the actress tells hubby, hey, back this new play for me. And he puts up the money and he funds it and all that. But bad actress is shit in it. So she quits. And bad actress runs off with husband. And like 3 months later, they're reading the paper and she goes, oh, wow, it seems that the play that I was going to be in is really hot and the actress is really good. And so they go back to see it, and guess who the actress is? You got it. Wifey is now the diva. Another good score for Wifey. And then we have number 4. Number 4 is a story about a detective. I'm trying to make this down to 10 minutes, and then we'll see if I can keep going with the series. And this detective, he's bored. He wants to be Sam Spade, but he's just living in this like very dull life of not very interesting crime. And his wife is jealous. His wife is jealous because he thinks that he's got eyes for the sole policewoman in the station. Remember, it's like the 1920s. There aren't too many policewomen around. But he has an idea. He wants to get into some intrigue. So he notices this young guy, who kind of looks like an Indian Daniel or Radcliffe, standing around in the street every night. At certain times, like, he must be a terrorist. He must be like involved in the free somebody or other plot and gunshots and all this. So he befriends this kid. He shaves off his mustache because he thinks this is a big disguise. And he goes to live where the kid's living. The kid's living in like this hostel place. It's the end of term, but he stayed around after classes. And so, detective is befriending Daniel Radcliffe, and he's like, I have this girl who, I don't know, if she likes me. Unrequited love is terrible. And then Daniel Radcliffe goes, yes, I know, unrequited love is so terrible. And I know what it is. Did you guess what it is yet? That's right, but let's hold on with that, okay? So, detective gets policewoman to play the role of his alleged girlfriend so they can get closer to him and like worm out his terrorist secrets. And it turns out that, without going into too much more nonsense, that Daniel Radcliffe is really in love with the detective's wife and never told her. He was going to try to ask to marry her, but he was too young because, the father, whatever, said, no, you can't. But she never knew. So he was like watching her every night doing the evening puja on the veranda outside the detective's house. And so basically, Daniel Radcliffe, detective thinks he's trapping Daniel Radcliffe into like revealing his terrorist plots, but it turns out that they end up with Daniel Radcliffe confronting the wife and saying, see, policewoman really is his girlfriend. So detective, he fucked himself. And then the fifth one is about some older guy who's just come out of prison, and there's some sort of backstory here where he was in love with a girl because he just got out of prison, and he comes back to his friend's house and he says, how is so-and-so? And then I just cut it off and says, I know this is going to be a sad story. I'm not in the mood for it. So it is a little over 12 minutes, and I've given you synopses of 4 of these stories. Let's see. Who's the winner, Tagore or Chester? Let you know soon. Bye.